If you already have your dreams, then this is the next segment for you. But yes, the five steps. These are them. So the first one is to network, attend events and or conferences that are related to your dreams. The second one is creating a vision board or some sort of visual tool. So a vision board is a powerful tool for visualization and essentially touching your dreams. Third one is to immerse yourself in environments that reflect your dreams. So here we're trying to spend time in places that align with your aspirations. And then the fourth step is to connect with mentors and role models. So this is this idea of trying to connect with, possible mentors, role models who have achieved what your goals look like. And the fifth step that I think is very easy and everyone can start to do today is to write down your dreams. And I think writing down your dreams on a regular basis is another very easy, simple step to touch your dreams and make them more tangible. Hi, Envisionairs. Welcome to the EnvisionAir Podcast. This is the podcast where we envision living our best lives by exploring everyday topics related to health, wealth, community, and love. This podcast is for information purposes only and should not be considered to be medical, legal, tax, financial, or other professional advice.
This podcast does not encourage or endorse any illegal activity.
We are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liability that may arise from the information in this podcast.
The views explored in the podcast may not always be those of the host.
On today's episode, I'm very excited because this is going to be a solo episode, and I haven't done one of these in a few months. And I really wanted to talk to you guys about the topic of touching your dreams. And I was really inspired to share this topic with you guys because I just got back from California about a week ago. And while I was in California there for the podcast, I just had this like universal download. And I was like, I need to be able to talk to you guys about this idea of touching your dreams, which is a concept that I learned about 6 months ago from Ed Mylett, who is an amazing, inspirational entrepreneur, author, speaker, podcaster, who talked about this idea on his podcast. And I will link that episode in the show notes. And anyway, I really want to talk to you guys about this topic. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, which I'm really excited about, but solo episode. And I just really wanted to share with you guys this sort of inspiration about going after your dreams right now and really just persevering and trying to get in close proximity as much as possible to your dreams and the power that comes with doing that. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And then we're also going to talk about practical tips that you can start to touch your dreams starting today. So very excited. It's packed full of lots of information. And I've also found some really interesting research that I want to share with you guys about the science behind touching your dreams, which is really, really cool. So without further ado, let's get started. So, what exactly does touching your dreams mean? Well, again, it's a concept I learned about from Ed Mylett. And he talked about this idea that you really want to get in close proximity to the dreams that you're chasing. And it's essentially a way of, I guess, feeling maybe getting closer to it and feeling like the dream in a tangible way and an achievable way. And so he explains that a lot of our big dreams can seem foreign and intimidating when we actually start dreaming about them. But if we can get closer, effectively touching them, we can change the vibration that we operate in, making these dreams more familiar and therefore accessible. So he gave a really great example when he talked about this. And this was a time, now he's now worth like $400 million, like his net worth. So he is extremely wealthy. But he came from very humble background. Like I think he describes himself as having a very lower middle class background, and he didn't have a lot of money. And then he really worked his way up and became an entrepreneur and an investor, and that's where he made a lot of his money, which is great. And so he says that at a time before he had made a lot of money and he was working in sales in a corporate entity, He knew like one of his dreams was to be wealthy and to kind of, you know, be in like wealthy circles. And but he felt very uncomfortable in scenarios where he would be around wealthy people. And because he didn't have a lot of money at the time, he would give himself like monthly targets with regards to sales. And if he met these targets or these goals he'd set for himself, so he incentivized himself, he would then make a reservation to stay at the Ritz Carlton in Laguna, California, which is like super fancy hotel. And he would make sure he took advantage of all of the services. So he would do like valet parking, he would do rounds of golf at the hotel, and he would make sure his wife had a really nice spa day. And then in the evenings, they would come together and they would talk about all the amazing things they did and basically dream about what their life will be like, when they have enough money to do this as a regular occurrence. And he explains that he felt super uncomfortable at the beginning, like when he first went there. And, even when the people who greeted him would address him, by his, be very deferential and say, "Oh, hi, Mr. Mylett." And he just felt really, really uncomfortable because he didn't, I guess, feel like he was worthy to be in those circles. He felt maybe like an imposter. He wasn't aligned with it, even though he really wanted it. It was his dream, right? So that's a very interesting that he felt super uncomfortable. And so, but then he says that he just pressed on, right? And so then he would just continue to do it. And if he didn't meet his sales targets, then he wouldn't go. But then if the following month he did make it again, the targets that he'd set for himself, he would book another evening at the Ritz Carlton. And then the second time he went, he even though he still felt uncomfortable, he started feeling less uncomfortable. And so he started saying that, he knew that like the valet parking would come and they would do this and they would take his luggage and he felt more comfortable with that. And then like when he was around the pool, he knew exactly where the towel rack is. So he started feeling less of an imposter, if you will, which was really interesting. And anyway, and then obviously the third time he went, again, he became, more comfortable. And so then he started actually feeling like he was more comfortable and actually like he started belonging there. Anyway, I'm not going to go into all the details of that episode, but it's a really, really great story. And what I took away from that was that you really need to put yourself in proximity in order to touch your dreams. The importance of that and what that can do to your vibration and your feelings of kind of what you think is attainable, which is really interesting. And what is really cool is that there's plenty of research that I found that backs up this idea of breaking through these limiting beliefs in order to create change. So, Dr. Joe Dispenza, who I absolutely love, he is amazing. He's an expert in neuroscience, and he published an article in 2020. And in that article, which is called Pushing Past the Layers, and I'll link all of the articles I talk about in this episode. I'm going to link it in the show notes. But essentially, in that article, Pushing Past the Layers, he says that whenever we're reaching, intending, or creating a new future, you start to experience resistance, which he describes as, quote, veils of ignorance or limitation, end quote. And this happens at both the physiological level, where our bodies can start producing stress chemicals, as well as at the mind level, where we start to go into overdrive thinking about how we can actually reach this future. And that's when all these like to-do lists start coming out and you start like ruminating essentially about all the obstacles maybe you need to face in order to reach that goal or dream. And then often we can also hear the internal voice with all of the doubts about how this future is not even going to be attainable. But he says that you have to press on through these layers, right? Even though they're uncomfortable, to start to disrupt and break out of the body's familiar biological, neurocircuitry, neurochemistry, genetic propensities, and all of the emotional conditioning that we're all subject to. And this has created all of the limiting beliefs. Once you start to stretch past these familiar feelings, so the limiting beliefs, which are the familiar feelings, into the unknown, a kind of quote, disentangling from a certain level of consciousness or awareness occurs, end quote. And he explains that in order to disentangle, you need to change your energetic emotional state. So I'm just going to say that again. In order to disentangle, you need to change your energetic emotional state. And the energetic emotional state is the energy, the consciousness, the thought and feeling, as well as the frequency and the information. Once you've changed your energetic emotional state, you become conscious of new possibilities and substantive real change can start occurring in your life. So I just really want to emphasize that. So this is like really, really important and something that I had to like reread several times. But this idea of disentangling all of the energy, the consciousness, the thought and feeling, frequency and information that we have been programmed with our whole lives. Once you can start stretching past what are the familiar feelings, even if it's limiting beliefs, once you start doing that, then you can break through and start creating effective, lasting change. So that was really, really powerful. And then Dr. Dispenza, explains that we need to change our will, our attention, our passion, and intensity and continue past these veils of ignorance or limitation. And whenever we do so, these veils are going to start getting less loud and less intense. So essentially, if we're thinking about what Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about, his research and his principles, we start to see that Ed Mylett did this whenever he would go to the Ritz Carlton. He was changing his energetic emotional state because he was changing his energy, his consciousness, his thoughts, his feelings about what wealth was as a concept, how he viewed wealth, and his worthiness of wealth. And then he started changing his frequency and his information levels around that concept, which is so fascinating. I also learned from Dr. Joe Dispenza that the more you do things that make you uncomfortable or are challenging you, this can increase the neuroplasticity of the brain. And neuroplasticity is essentially how the neural networks in the brain are organized and respond to new information and sensory stimulation. And I think for a long time, I'm not an expert in neuroscience, although I do love it and I find it really interesting. I love reading about it. But for a long time, a lot of scientists thought that the brain was fixed and there was no way it was hardwired and it really couldn't change much. But what they've recently been discovering is that a lot of neuroscience has shown that actually the brain, it has plasticity, so it can change and can be molded and is very like fluid, if you will, which is really, really great to know. And it doesn't matter, what age you are or how old you, it doesn't this stuff doesn't matter. It's just to show you that change can happen. And so if we take more risks and we start facing new challenges and we continue to press through the uncomfortable feelings of change, we will start to see real effective change, which is really, really cool. So hope that that explains the importance of touching your dreams, because it basically we need to be able to break through these limiting beliefs or these doubts that we hold on to from past experiences or have been programmed in us, at a young age by external circumstances that we have stored in our brains. So touching your dreams can help you break through some of these. And it can also essentially make us reach our dreams in even a more quicker or more efficient way, which is awesome. Another really important factor of touching your dreams is the fact that it can boost your confidence. It can help with motivation towards reaching your dreams. It can help with creating new beliefs in your ability to make your dreams a reality. And it can ultimately raise your vibration, allowing you to move into the space where you think you actually deserve to attain your dreams. So it's a really effective tool or procedure that I think is invaluable, really, if you are looking to meet certain goals and dreams. So, there are many ways that you can touch your dreams, and it will really just depend on what your dreams are exactly. This could be traveling to a location that you feel drawn to or that you want to live in. It could be attending a conference or a workshop in an industry that you actually aspire to work in or own a business in. The list is virtually endless. Now, if you can't experience the physical touching of your dreams by traveling there or attending a conference or anything or for any other reason, you can actually use other tools that are very accessible, and these include visualization and mental rehearsal. This can allow you to go inward into your own mind's eye and experience the dream fully by visualizing it in your mind's eye. And research has actually shown that this can significantly enhance performance and goal attainment. So, I'm going to go into more detail about how you can touch your dreams. But before I do, I just wanted to quickly share with you guys my own personal experience with touching my dreams. So, as I mentioned, I heard Ed Mylett's podcast about 6 months ago, and it really resonated with me because I realized that this concept is so important when we're trying to attain, some serious level of change. And I know from my personal experience that there is a lot of value in physically touching or being in the space where you want to be in the future, or you at least you see yourself being in the future. So when I was preparing for this episode, I came to the realization that my mom has espoused this principle, but she didn't call it touching your dream. But she really had that sort of foresight to encourage me to start doing that at a young age. So when I was in my last year of high school, I decided that I wanted to study and work in politics. And my mom, well, she probably nudged me in that direction, but my mom had actually told me with a lot of conviction that if I wanted to work in Canadian politics, that I had to go to, quote, the real McCoy. And that meant going to Ottawa in Canada, which is the nation's capital and where the Canadian Parliament is located, and obviously where national political decisions are made. And even though I had the option to go to university in Toronto, and I would have been closer to her and to my family, and so that would have made sense. From her perspective, she really pushed me and said, "No, you have to go to Ottawa because that's where your career is going to be." And having that foresight to say, like, you need to go to this place where this is like a real political hub is so interesting that she had that foresight, like 20 years ago, and was essentially helping me to touch my dreams. And that did spur me on to having, a decade long, I would say, some would say, successful career in politics, which is really, really great. So there's definitely some value in that as well. Anyway, I think over the years too, I've touched my dreams in different ways. But most recently, one of the ones I want to share with you was going to California for the podcast and really immersing myself in this like vibration and the energy of California. So I don't think I've ever shared this with anyone on the podcast, but, well, as in, like, I don't think I've openly talked about it. I know I've talked to lots of my friends about this, but I've been feeling this real pull towards California for the last few years, and I don't know exactly where it comes from, but I've definitely seen it in my mind's eye, and I'm trying to kind of understand what it means. But I definitely knew I had to go to California, and I really wanted my husband and I to go. Anyway, when the opportunity presented itself in such a like leaving it to the universe and things working out the way they did, I was like, okay, this is a sign. We're going to go to California and I'm going to figure out exactly, why and what this is all about. And honestly, it was awesome. It was amazing actually. And you know, I think being in an environment, I try to I consider myself a creative, and being, in this really rich environment where so many creative people live and work and are, and also just like this like beautiful landscape, and it was so I don't know, the energy there is very, very different. It's alive. There's so many ambitious people there who are hungry, who want to be successful. And it's just really, really cool to be able to touch my dream in that way. And, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what my future holds. I like to think that there's going to be something in the entertainment world, but we shall see. But it was really, really cool to be able to go to California, go to LA, and really just be in that environment. And I definitely feel like I touched my dreams and I definitely felt like reinvigorated and re-energized. So that definitely for me was one step closer to my dreams, if you will. And so I'm really grateful that I was able to go there, which is really cool. So anyway, I knew I wanted to share this with you, and I knew I wanted to do an episode on this, and I'm really glad that I can do that. So let's move on. How can you touch your dreams? I have set out 5 steps that I think you can start working on today to start touching your dreams. And obviously, it goes without saying, but you, the first step is always this is not even part of the 5 steps. This is just like a general aside. It always helps if you actually know what your dreams are. And it's okay if you don't, because some people don't, and that's totally fine. But if you're kind of feeling a little bit stuck or you're unsure where you are in life, and like maybe you're not sure, like maybe there's certain areas that you're like, maybe I don't know, I'm feeling a little bit low in this specific area. I would encourage you to go to my website. So that's www.nicolengyuen.com. So Nicole and then NGYUEN.com. And on that website, on the main page where it says welcome to the the EnvisionAir Club at the top, there's a button that you can press that says EnvisionAir Life Audit. And so you can just click on it, and you enter, like, it's a mailing thing, and you enter your email, you download this free tool that I've created. And it's basically my life audit tool, which is, I use it often. And it basically is like an assessment of the 4 areas of our life, if you will, and what we look at on the podcast, which is health, wealth, community, and love. And basically, you can start to assess, give yourself, it's like a self analysis tool that you can look at which areas in your life are kind of lacking and where you're doing really well, where you're happy. And then the areas that you're lacking, you can start really honing in and focusing on those areas to try and figure out, what your dreams are, what your goals are, what you want to change. And so if that is helpful to you, please do download it, and let me know if it helps and it works. And I think that would be a great way to start brainstorming some of your goals and dreams that you want to achieve. But once you have your dreams, or if you already have your dreams, then this is the next segment for you. But yes, the five steps. These are them. So the first one is to network, attend events and or conferences that are related to your dreams. So for me, one of the most effective ways to get close to your dream is to actually attend events, conferences that are in your industry that you want to work in, or that you want, if you're building a business that you want, that industry area, that focus that where you want to build your business, or where you want to grow, or where you want your career to grow, because there's going to be so many opportunities to network with like-minded individuals, learn from experts in there, and also just generally gain insight into the area, this field of interest. And so what is really interesting is, again, I did a lot of research because I love my research. And what I found is that being around these people, even if it's again uncomfortable to you, that's going to increase the neuroplasticity in your brain, and you're going to stretch yourself. So if you're an introverted person and you don't like networking events, you should go, even more so, even more reason to go to some of these events, because you're going to be stretching yourself. And then what happens, obviously, as we learned with Dr. Joe Dispenza, when you start stretching, that increases the neuroplasticity and you start creating change. And that's really what we want, right? Also, if you're interested in touching your dream related to a job or a career or business, according to a study published in the Journal of Applied Psychology, networking and professional socialization are key predictors, I can say that word, of success in one's career. So that's really interesting. So engaging with your industry, within your industry, can actually open doors to new opportunities and can help ensure that you stay motivated to reach your goals, and you're more likely to actually reach your goals. So that's the first step. So definitely networking, attending events and or conferences that are related to your goals. That's the first step. That's easy. We can all do that. The second one is creating a vision board or some sort of visual tool. So, a vision board is a powerful tool for visualization and essentially touching your dreams. I'm sure everyone's heard of vision boards, but if you haven't, you're basically trying to collect images or quotes, symbols that represent your goals, and you create like a visual poster or some sort of, you could even do it in a journal. And basically, some sort of reminder that you can look at on a regular basis to show visually, remind yourself what you're working towards. And also, it's really quite a very like kinesthetic experience to be able to cut out images and choose and select and then paste them and create, your own little vision, if you will. It's something very, very nice and tangible about actually doing that and seeing it on a regular basis. And actually, again, the research and evidence shows that studies have suggested that visualization and goal setting are effective techniques for improving motivation and achieving performance goals. So, I mean, there's countless studies that in psychology that show that as well. So, a vision board or some sort of visual tool or cue to keep your goals in front of you at the forefront of your mind is really, really important and can serve as a daily inspiration. So, another step to take to touch your dreams. The third one is to immerse yourself in environments that reflect your dreams. So, here we're trying to spend time in places that align with your aspirations. So for me, that was the example of going to California was definitely one way of immersing myself in the environment that reflects my dreams. But if your dream of success is to work or own, like, for example, a high end restaurant or a hotel, you really want to try and intentionally visit locations that align with that. So you go to the high end restaurant, you go to the hotel or the industry specific hotspot that you're interested in. And you basically just immerse yourself in a sensory, way, and you try and experience everything that it is. So you look at the people working there, you take in the smells, the sights, the tastes. If you're, trying the food, you basically are really trying to just immerse yourself fully in that environment that reflects your dreams. And what's really interesting is there's environmental psychology studies that have shown that our surroundings, which they refer to as attachment to places, can significantly impact our thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and overall well being. So, intentionally putting ourselves in environments that reflect our dreams can help us experience, like have a taste, if you will, of what the dream is, and it can also help adopt a more open mindset, more real. It seems more realistic as well, and it can also influence the behaviors that are needed to achieve these dreams. So that's great. And then the fourth step is to connect with mentors and role models. So this is this idea of trying to connect with possible mentors, role models who have achieved what your goals look like, and you want to try and get as within their as close of a proximity as you can, because we all know that we're the sum average of the five people that we surround ourselves with, right? So try and make sure that at least one of these five is a mentor or a role model if you can. um, and obviously if you can't, then you really want to try and make sure that you're tapping into content that of mentors that so if, for example, if one of your mentors is like Oprah, for example, for me, I often look at the content she creates because there's this element of in my mind she's my mentor. She doesn't know it yet. No, I'm just joking. That sounded a little crazy, but no, but you know what I mean though, right? It's like this idea that you just really want to say, I may not have her in my immediate circle, but essentially I listen to a lot of her content, that it basically, her advice and her journey and, any wisdom she imparts, I get to benefit from, which is great. So, and then also, what was interesting from a research perspective is that mentorship has been linked to numerous positive outcomes, including increased job satisfaction, higher salaries, greater career advancement. So, obviously, having a mentor can provide a lot of valuable insights and support you in reaching your dreams. And the fifth step that I think is very easy and everyone can start to do today is to write down your dreams. And I think writing down your dreams on a regular basis is another very easy, simple step to touch your dreams and make them more tangible. And sometimes when we envision our dreams, in our mind, they still, seem far away. And I think it is really helpful if we can, write them down, because sometimes I find that when I write them down, it's almost like there's just this easy, like, flow that comes. And then all of a sudden, like, the steps that I need to take come to me. It's just like this, like, download. It's really quite magical. And another thing to do that's related to that is sometimes break down the steps that you need to take into smaller, more attainable goals, or steps rather. So you're kind of just breaking down. If you have one overarching goal, you're trying to, like, break it down into smaller, more attainable goals. That way you get a bit more momentum and confidence in trying to reach that overall goal. So small wins create a sense of progress and keep you motivated. So, as we conclude, I just want to reiterate the idea that touching your dreams is about making your dreams feel real and attainable by getting as close in proximity to them as possible. So that can be, again, attending events, conferences, creating a vision board, immersing yourself in inspiring or aspirational environments, connecting with mentors or people who have made it in the industry you want to break into, or even just writing down or taking small steps towards your goals. Each action that you take, which is essentially touching your dreams, is bringing you closer and closer to realizing your dreams. So, Envisionaires, I challenge you today to start touching your dreams. I want to hear all about it. You can connect with me on Instagram, leave me a comment on YouTube, or email the podcast, EnvisionAir Podcast at gmail.com. Let me know what action you've started to take to touch your dreams and how I can help. Remember, the closer you get to your dreams, the more familiar and achievable they become. So go out there and start touching your dreams today. I'm sending you so much love. Have a great day, Envisionaires. Thanks everyone for listening to the EnvisionAir podcast. Make sure that you like and subscribe to this podcast so that you stay up to date on all of our new episodes.